SD41 BPOU meeting.
As soon as they're done cooking everything, we'll get the fans turned off and hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter in there. So I am really thrilled tonight to be able to have 3 guests tonight, and I know it's been quite a draw, and we've been having a lot of people, so I'm really excited about that. So just a couple housekeeping things before we do start with the guests, and then I have some other things after the guests that I also would like to talk to you guys about, and I hope that you stick around for that. In case you don't know, my name is Adam Davis. I am the Senate District 41 Chair for the Republican Party, and this area includes Columbia Heights, Hilltop, Quigley, St. Anthony, New Brighton, and a portion of Spring Lake Park. And what I would like to start here is, if you don't mind, let's please stand and honor our flag. Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if you got my meeting notice, you probably read it in the email, but I just wanted to touch on this, that you may have heard that our dear friend and 2020 Republican House candidate, Ron Vogel, passed away on November 20th. And he had multiple complications after successfully beating COVID, but he had a heart attack, he had internal bleeding and water in the lungs. Just one thing after complication after another. And unfortunately, not with us now. And if you don't mind, just would like to have a moment of silence for him. Lord, just ask you to bless Ron, and please bless his family, and help him through this tough time that we are going through. And just thank you for the time that we've gotten to know him, gotten to know his love of politics, his love of his family, and just all of the things that we just appreciate having Ron in our lives here. So, amen. And I will ask Lucia at a later date to speak. She does have some information that she wants. I know that she does want to talk with the families, right? So, all right. Thank you so much. So, like I said, 3 candidates tonight. I'm very excited to be able to introduce them to you. The first one is Lynn Torgerson, and she is one of our candidates running for State Attorney General. So I am just really thrilled to have you here tonight. Thank you so much. So we're giving her some time to speak, and then afterwards, anybody that has questions, if you don't mind, feel free to ask them, so that we can make a really good informed decision on who we think will be the best candidate out there. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Lynn Torgerson. I'm going to try and speak up here a little bit. And I'm running for Minnesota Attorney General. I want to thank Mr. Adam Davis for inviting me. Thank you for doing that. It's a privilege and honor to be here. And I also want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And thank you for your activism. We really need that in this next election cycle. As I mentioned, my name is Lynn Torgerson. I'm running for Minnesota Attorney General. 3 important things to me that I like to mention. 1, I'm a Christian. 2, I'm a patriot. 3, I'm a Trump supporter. I'd like to go a little bit over my background, tell you a little bit about my campaign, and also tell you what I'd like to do as Attorney General. As far as my background, I grew up in a western suburb. I attended the University of Minnesota and got degrees in political science and psychology. After that, I attended William College of Law, and then about 25 years ago, I opened my own successful practice in downtown Minneapolis, which I have to the present day. I had a court date this morning at 9:30. So, what I do in my law practice, I primarily practice Second Amendment gun rights litigation, expungements, and historically I did more criminal defense work. For the Second Amendment enthusiasts, I always like to mention some facts. I think facts can kind of tell a story. I have won gun rights cases in 36 different counties in the state of Minnesota, as well as at the Minnesota Court of Appeals. About a month ago, or last month, I did file a petition with the U.S. Supreme Court. We're seeking to strike down the carry permit requirement statute in the state of Minnesota on the grounds that it punishes pure Second Amendment behavior as a gross misdemeanor or felony level if you don't have a permit. And about 5 million Minnesotans do not have a permit to carry. For the Israel enthusiasts, I think it's important to note I was Minneapolis City Director for Christians United for Israel for 5 years. At our own expense, we would travel to D.C. and lobby Congress on behalf of Israel. A little bit about my campaign. As I was putting together my campaign, I realized that an overarching theme was freedom. Medical freedom, freedom to go to work, things like that. And I always like to mention the big three that we would like to be free of, and that's Governor Walz, Pete Ellison, and President Joe Biden. When I started running, somebody told me to take a look at the powers of the Attorney General's office. And it was kind of surprising to me, and I like to mention them to people because this is what we can do when we get elected to this office. And it's a case that was issued when my patch was Attorney General. I don't agree with his principles, but I really like the way he ran the office. He used the office of the Attorney General as a sword. And one of the cases essentially set forth, and I'll quote it, it says, as Chief Law Officer of the state, the Attorney General possesses all the powers inherent in that office of common law. The Attorney General may institute, conduct, and maintain all such actions and proceedings as he deems necessary for the enforcement of the laws of the state, the preservation of order, and the protection of legal rights. That is extremely broad power. The case went on to state that the Attorney General may appear for the state in all civil cases in the state courts whenever, in the Attorney General's opinion, the interests of the state require it. So, pretty much, when you get elected, you can pretty much institute any sort of case that we want, that we deem in the interests of the state. So, as Attorney General, I would want to protect a number of things. I would just like to mention, since March of 2020, I've been opposing the lockdowns of the businesses, lockdowns of schools, things like that. I think it's really important to note that before this, before a government could shut down a business, they were required to pay the owner of that business the fair market value of that business. And Walz and Ellison is completely disregarded those constitutional requirements. I do think we need to address the businesses that have been harmed by these lockdown orders. The policies have addressed everybody but the business owners. As Attorney General, I would also want to bring lawsuits to strike down the legislation which enabled Governor Walz to issue these sort of lockdown decrees. It can be struck down as unconstitutional, unnecessary, unauthorized and destructive. And I do think it's important to note that these sort of lockdown orders are unprecedented ever, and they're probably the most destructive acts of our own government against our own citizens, in my memory. So, and I've also always opposed the mandatory vaccines, the mandatory masking, and I also want to enable doctors to determine the health care that people need for COVID, not Dr. Fauci. I also, as I mentioned, a huge supporter of Second Amendment rights, and I always want to take the opportunity. Some of the younger generations aren't aware of the importance of Second Amendment rights, as illustrated by Justice Scalia. He said there's 3 primary reasons for the Second Amendment. The first is so that we have the ability to engage in self-defense, property, family, things like that. Second is so that we have citizens armed on the ground who can aid the military in the event of an attack against the United States, domestic or foreign. And third, so that we have the ability to defend ourselves against governmental tyranny. So, ordinarily, people talk about a few issues. I think, the left has been so advancing on so many different arenas that, I briefly want to touch on those. I do think it's important to reopen the pipelines. Gas has doubled, at least filling up my tank in the past year. We need to support the police, not sue the police. We need to require enforcement of the criminal laws. Stop the rioting, don't let them burn down police stations. Stop illegal immigration. Support pro-life, promote racial harmony, and stop CRT. Investigate the voting machines, support perhaps paper ballots and one-day voting. And then I also want to just briefly address a lot of people. I do want to educate people on problems with Keith Ellison. There's a lot of people who are afraid to touch this topic. There's an organization, the Council on American Islamic Relations, who's active in every state in their union. They were a named, unindicted co-conspirator in funding terrorism in the Holy Land Foundation trial, and there were convictions in that case for sending $11 million to the terrorist organization Hamas. And then we have a YouTube video with Keith Ellison being a speaker at a care banquet. So he's definitely tied to people he should not be, and he needs to be removed from government for permanent. So overall, I just want to mention that, a huge kind of theme of my approach is that I want to protect the founding principles of our country, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the foundations of our republic. And I really like the quote, living in Minneapolis, I guess I kind of feel like a minority, but by I think it's Samuel Adams. It says, "It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." So there's a lot of work, I think, for conservatives and Republicans to do. We've been losing at about a rate of about 25-1 for a number of years. So that I think that just means that we need to work 1,000 times harder. I would say that I'm up for the battle and I get things done. And so please support Lynn Torgerson for Minnesota Attorney General. Okay.
What prompted you to run for office?
I guess, I feel qualified to handle the job. I think mainly just I'm willing and able. So, I care about the country. I believe in the foundations, of America and America First, I think attitude. So,
It is cold. I can hear fine, can't see.
The problem is that buzzing sound. So Chad, or it's Chad, right? Adam, yeah. I don't know if you can get them to turn that off, but the problem is that
Fan.
the fan. That's what's making the sound
Well,
part.
you said that you're going to try and turn it down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like a white sound, and you can't really suppress a white noise.
Yeah. They'll be shutting down soon because they closed down the
Although,
grill.
well, I have a blowhorn in the car, but we're gonna give us each. Up there, the blowhorn. I do. I do. I'm ready to go for anywhere, any place. You know. I got all this stuff in the car. Ready to go.
Unfortunately, it's the refrigerator that's making the remaining noise.
No worries.
Unplug it.
So people, the speaker. I think I can hear them, but I think generally people are having a hard time hearing.
They can unplug it for
We'll go get that plug line out there.
Yeah. But so long as the speakers kind of like speak loud.
We used to call it a megaphone in here. With the high ceiling, there's no acoustics.
Alrighty. Alright, thank you, Lynn. Our next speaker is Dr. Scott Jensen, and he is running for the office of governor, and he is one of 6 candidates right now. Is it down to 5 now? Okay.
At the moment.
I've heard a rumor that there might be another one coming in again in January, so it's a fluid situation. But so I know a lot of you are probably new to Dr. Jensen, so without further ado, thank you so much, Dr. Jensen.
We have had enough. That's why we're here. We absolutely have had enough, and we're going to take Minnesota back. This year, we have an opportunity, and we know this has got to be about electability. We've got to put a candidate at the top of the ticket that can all the way down help every representative and senator that's running on the Republican side of the equation fundraise. That's what we've got to do. We announced 9 months ago that we're going for it. In that time, we've gone out, we've gone north, south, east, and west to communities across the state. And what we've done is we've tried to energize conservatives and independents. We want to tell them conservative means conservare, from Latin, safeguard. We're trying to safeguard the best that's within us because that's been slipping away from us. We've seen the draconian lockdown policies, the one-size-fits-all approach that Governor Walz brings to the table. We have seen the ridiculous moving of the goalposts. We've seen the sham modeling, the masks, the mandates. We have energized Minnesotans. We go to a meet and greet and expect 30 people, and there's 300 people in a pole barn waiting. We have led. I was the one who raised my hand saying, what you're asking doctors to do with death certificates is wrong. You're corrupting the data. I expected someone to fix it. I didn't expect my license to be investigated 2 months later. I'm now on my 5th investigation. I led the charge against Tim Walz with his non-transparent models. When he came on and said 74,000 people are going to die within the next 3 months unless we do something. I led that. I led against Joe Biden when on September 9th he came out and said, we are going to mandate that if you've got over 100 employees, you're going to get them all vaccinated or they're fired. We have seen the courts come back and support what we've done and what we said. They are coming to bat for us, as is the U.S. Senate. Fact of the matter is, I called for civil disobedience on September 9th in a video. I led the charge saying Jan Malcolm shouldn't have a job being the head of the Department of Health. And I've led again with Governor Walz saying, why have you been willing to blame children and parents for the influx of disease into nursing homes? That was below, and that's what he did. And we're leading now. If you look at the Minnesota Post poll from 3 months ago, we had the highest ranked name recognition. Our team, Team Jensen, had the highest name recognition of any candidate by more than 10 points. The recent KSTP poll, I had the highest favorability rating among all the candidates, including Walz, in the independent group and the conservative group. And we're going to continue to lead. Because when we win in November, we are going to make a pact with Minnesota. And we are going to, in the first 100 days, devote ourselves completely to passing a stand your ground bill, a constitutional carry bill, voter ID, rewrite the emergency powers, and get students some choice. That's going to be the priority. We believe that we need to throw a bigger tent. Reagan said it in the 80s. What does that mean? Well, we know that if you look at the demographics, we've been losing each election cycle for the last 10 years suburban women. I would say it's because the Republican Party has not done a good job of respecting the suburban women. So we shouldn't just talk about it. We got to ask ourselves, how do we connect better? Well, first, if you're talking with one, respect it. Ask them what they think. How do they communicate? Are they all ordering the Star Tribune in the printed form in droves? No, they're not. They're on social media. They're paying attention on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. We've got 500,000 people that follow us every day. We're crossing over 80,000 on Twitter today as we speak. We want to communicate better than we've ever communicated with women because they're driving the show. You want some evidence of that? Look at what the Mama Bears did in Virginia. They led the charge. They are revitalizing the conservative cause, and they need to be attended to. We need to go to the minority communities. My wife and I and Angela, we spent the afternoon on Lake Street today, meeting with Somalians, meeting with blacks, going to businesses, eating pizza, which was pretty good, and just asking, what matters to you? You know what they said? Public safety. Public safety. They said, that's the first thing. I said, how do we fix that? Get cops on the street. These people don't want to defund the police. They understand. We also have to go to the millennials and the Gen Zs. And you know, Republicans can do a pretty crappy job sometimes of extending a sincere invitation. We've got to do it better. We've got to go to Gen Zs and millennials and say, hey, we need you at this table. We need your energy and your intellect. You may not have been educated the way I was, where you had to memorize the 50 capitals of the states in 4th grade, but you're much more intuitive. And if my phone goes down, and my computer goes down, the last thing I'm going to go look for is a white guy. I'm going to look for a young man, a young woman, and say, would you fix this? Because frankly, I don't know how to fix those things. We have got to do a better job and find a new path to throw a bigger tent. I met yesterday with a couple of union people. What did they say? They want to come over to us. I met with farmers last week. What do they say? The Democratic policies have not done well for us. There is a pathway that we can win, but we've got to go get it, because it's not going to be easy. I am not a career politician. I'm a career family doctor. My job every day with 15 to 20 patients is to have thoughtful conversations and try to figure out what we can do in their journey to healing. I think when you talk about career politicians, we probably all think the same thing. 11th hour shenanigans, special sessions, gridlock, omnibus bills, an excessive devotion to seniority, secret dealings. That's what we get with political leadership. I'm not interested. I don't like politics. I really don't like politicians. I like everyday people. I like solving problems. This isn't my challenge. This is our challenge. We know the system's not working. I mean, heavens to Betsy, if you think the system's working and you like what you got, then I'm not your candidate. But if you want something different and you want to solve some problems, then you need to pay attention to what we're doing. And lastly, we have got to take a page from President Trump's playbook. You may not like the way he ran his Twitter page. I didn't. You may not like the way he sometimes gets bombastic. I didn't. But how could you argue with his policies, his regulations, his Supreme Court justices, the income tax in 2017? And how could you not appreciate the fact that he drove the dialogue? He engaged America. Before he started talking about DACA, 40% of people didn't even know what it was about. He drove that conversation. That wasn't his problem. People screamed at him and said, hey, why don't you solve this? It's a moral imperative. A lot of people don't even realize DACA came from Obama in 2012 with an executive order. And when it came, he had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. Why didn't he take care of business then if it was such a moral imperative? Don't blame Trump. But we're going to take a page from Trump's playbook and we're going to trailblaze the issues. And we are going to have the hard conversations. If something happens and people say, I want to talk about it, we are not going to run from it. When people want to talk about Second Amendment rights, we are going to champion them by elevating them. Second Amendment rights are not a gift from the legislature or a political party. They are God-given rights by our Creator, and they're in our Constitution, and we have to elevate them every legislative session. And if someone wants to talk about it, we'll talk about it, and we'll defend it. C.S. Lewis once said, if you talk to 100 Christians who have fallen away from their faith, not one of them will have been reasoned out of their faith. What you will find is that their faith drifted away from them because they didn't elevate it, they didn't champion it, they didn't pray it, they didn't go to church, they didn't meditate. It just drifted away from them. If you want to champion something, you elevate it, you defend it, you proclaim it, you talk about it. That's what I do. And that's what I'm going to do with Second Amendment rights, and it's what I'm going to do for the sanctity of life. Because we've got to protect the unborn all the way to the people who are finishing up their time on earth. If we put a candidate at the top of the ticket that can all the way down jazz up Minnesota, we got a chance. And that's why I'm running. Because I've had enough. We are running against a big machine, and the face of that machine is a guy like Tim Walz, a woman like Ilhan Omar, and a guy like Bernie Sanders, and there's another face on there too, and that's AOC. So if we don't get in this and do this together, we are going to lose. And if we lose, it's going to be pretty darn barren this decade. So let's not. Let's all together say, we've had enough, we're in this all the way, we're engaged. And I want to say thank you for letting me talk to you. Appreciate it. Would I comment on $7 billion? There is no $7 billion surplus. They stole $7 billion of yours. It's your money. $7. When they talk about a surplus, they want to sort of tell you, oh, look at how conservative we were in spending. Our spending has gone from $30 billion to $52 billion in 11 years. That's a 75% increase in our budget. The average wage earner has gone up 25% during that time. Government took a triple raise compared to the common average wage earner. That is not a surplus. That is your money, and you're entitled to it. If they don't want to give it back to you right now, then they better escrow it, put it in something, and use it to reduce the budget. Because if they put it in the budget and start spending, then they'll tap into that, and our budget will explode, and we'll be over $60 billion the next cycle. That is not their money. That's yours. Questions?
Isn't it actually closer to $9 million by the time you put their slush fund?
You're darn right it is. It's closer to actually $11 billion if you add in the slush fund money and the money that's coming from the feds.
And they're keeping that money. Why?
Well,
because
the Kim Walz
they're
is
borrowing it from us interest free.
they're keeping that money because they can.
Because we allow them to.
Amen. I'm with you, bro. Yes, ma'am.
About the Second Amendment, constitutional law, can you expand that a little bit more?
Well, we need to do one thing. Constitutional carry. I think we need to do it at 18. I'll be very honest. I like the idea of a 2-hour seminar before you get your constitutional carry, just to make sure you know what the law is regarding alcohol use, anything like that. But I think we need to talk a little bit about stand your ground. Minnesota does not have actual castle doctrine. We've had our courts say that they will abide by the concept. We need to write our own castle doctrine law, and we need to include our vehicles as our home. So that if someone tries to carjack us and we're in it, I don't want you getting out the driver's side because they say, I want you to pull a gun out and take care of business.
Yeah.
This is crazy. The only way we're going to get law and order back is to retrieve it ourselves. If you cannot put enough cops on the street corners to stop the lawlessness that is out there now. The genie is out of the bottle. We are in for the fight of our lives. I do not think any of us want to be irresponsible with guns. And I don't think we will. But frankly, there is no way we get our safety back without participating. There just isn't. We've gone that far down the road. You can see it. I mean, you can see people with strawman purchases. This woman in St. Paul, 8 times she bought a gun for her boyfriend who was illegal, prohibited, and she sold it to him. And he used that gun to kill people. I mean, folks, this is astonishing. Next question. I know that Dennis Smith wants to speak, and I appreciate him. Can I give a big hand for Dennis Smith and Lynn Torgerson? Thank you so much for coming. It's my pleasure to be here. Folks, we're in for the fight of our life, but I know we're up to the task. Esther 4:14, have you considered you're in the position you're in for such a time as this? Be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Could I get a picture with you?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
And I'll get one real quick.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank
I
you so much
thought
for
they
coming.
meant the chair.
All right.
Thought they were gonna
I
say
live in Target County,
Wiley.
Chancellor. It's God's country. Yeah. I told him up here he was just doing some practicing, and then he got it back down.
Don't know why.
All right. Thank you so much to Dr. Jensen. All right. We have one more great guest tonight, Dennis Smith. He is running for Attorney General as well, and I want you to give a warm welcome to him. Thank you so much.
It's great to be with you tonight. Thanks for coming out on this cold night to hear about how we're going to get Keith Ellison out of Minnesota politics for good. We've lost trust in our institutions, our government, the media, even some with each other. That's why I'm running for Attorney General, because I believe things can change if we make that change. Things can get better if we make them better. When I'm Attorney General, we're going to do three things. Number one, we're going to fight crime. I know something about the crime problem we're having in our city right now. When I worked at the legislature in 2014 at the Capitol, in May of 2017, after a long day of legislative hearings and floor debate, I went out to dinner with colleagues on Grand Avenue, not too far from here. At 10:30, walking back to my car, a criminal approached me and put a gun to my head and mugged me. I was fortunate to escape that without any physical harm. But the emotional harm I have dealt with every single day since. It's the same emotional harm that our fellow residents in St. Paul, in Minneapolis, and all the suburbs deal with every single day. Every morning, I open up the paper. I still actually read the physical paper. And we see what happened the day before. We see how many people were shot in St. Paul. How many people were murdered in Minneapolis. We know a couple of weeks ago, St. Paul released they're at an all-time high for the number of homicides in their city. A record in the city of St. Paul. We're this close to Minneapolis. In 1995, you might remember, Time magazine came out with a cover. We thought it was going to be something good. We were hoping. What'd they call us? Murder advocates. Murder advocates. It is shameful and it is embarrassing as to what's going on in our city. We have carjackings every day. Every day. People have become immune to it. It is so common. That will stop when I'm Attorney General. We're going to fight crime. We're going to support the police. I mean, we actually are going to support the police. We're going to get funding for more police to close that hiring gap they have. We're going to work with the county attorneys, all 87 of them, whether they agree with us or not. And we're going to support them and let them do their job. We're not going to take their job away from them. We're going to let them do their job. We're going to support them. And we're going to get the judges to stop this nonsense, low bail, no bail they're doing.
How do you do that?
Ask me that afterwards.
Okay.
Yes, I've got an answer.
Okay.
And it's a good one. Number two, I'll fight the broken machine. When our Secretary of State changes the election rules halfway through the game, I will stand up and fight for you, Minnesota. In our state, everybody's vote counts. Just once. When our governor illegally says you have to wear a mask, I will stand up and fight for you. When our president says you have to take a vaccine, if you work for a company that has 100 employees, I will stand up and fight for you. Oh, and the richness of that rule. If you fire just one person, if you're down at 99, you don't need to take the vaccine. That makes a lot of sense. And of course, our Congress people, they exempted themselves. If you're a congressperson, you don't need to take the vaccine if you don't want to. The same right we all have, by the way. You don't have to take the vaccine if you don't want to. I will not let the government force that on us. I will stand up and fight. Number 3, I'll always fight for you, for every Minnesotan, for everyone in this room. I'll never favor corporate America over Minnesota Main Street. Never. When they try to bring that CRT, the theory of critical race I call it, try to bring it into our classrooms, I will stand up and fight for our children. That's not the place for it. When big tech comes, tries to silence our voices because they don't like what you say on Facebook, or they don't like what you say on Facebook. But these people over here that have a different thought process, that's okay, they can stay on Facebook. I will stand up and fight for your First Amendment. And the cybersecurity thugs, the new modern day mafia. This doesn't get a lot of attention. Companies don't want it on the headlines. But we have these international thieves that are stealing the computer systems of our businesses, and they're holding them hostage for millions of dollars. That will end when I'm Attorney General. And our Constitution, our blessed Constitution, I will stand up and fight for our federal and our state Constitution. It will be supported when I'm the Attorney General. Every chapter of my life has prepared me to be Attorney General. I grew up not too far from here at White Bear Lake, just up the road. My dad was a milkman. Does anyone remember the milkman?
Oh yeah.
I was a little guy in the milkman's truck, helping his dad. I spent countless hours, felt like countless days in his milk truck. If I wasn't in school, I was in the milk truck. I'd run the milk up to the door, sometimes put it in the cute little milk box that were decorated with such care. Often put it in the client's refrigerators because we had keys to the client's homes. Imagine that. We had keys to most of our customers' homes. Hundreds of them. Does that happen in today's world?
No.
I don't think so. I'd like to get back to that. That'd be nice. Later on in my youth, I got involved in the bicycle motocross sport, BMX. Turns out I was pretty good. I was ranked in the world, top 10 in the world twice. I won national championships. It's where I learned how to hone my competitive edge. Later on, I went to school at North Dakota State, up in Fargo. Go Bison. I heard there's a future Bison child of someone in the room, going to be a Bison next year. That's awfully exciting. Big football game Saturday. National championship semifinal. Don't let anyone let you tell you it's not important. It is. Later on, I went to law school at William Mitchell College of Law. I worked my way through law school at night. The day after I got my license and graduated, I opened up my own law practice in Maple Grove. For 22 years, I've been practicing law, helping families and businesses and individuals in their moments of crisis, planning for their future. The only advertising I've ever done is the back of my church bulletin. I got the upper left-hand corner square. I got the double square. Never giving that up. I've got 2 great kids that are on the back of the palm card. If you don't have a palm card, please go home with one. Lillian and Buck. And they're older now, 22 and 20, but we're a hockey family. I played hockey my whole life. If my dad were here, he would say that he taught me how to skate before I learned how to walk. And that's a good Minnesota story. I don't know if it's true or not. But I coached my kids for 15 years, and I got involved in the Osseo Maple Grove Hockey Association. Those hockey parents, those are tough cookies. That's tough work. I became president. I was re-elected president because I governed with such fairness and transparency. Something very rare in the hockey world. Someone on the board joked that it's more difficult to be the association president than it is to be a legislator in St. Paul making laws for all of us to live under. I was fortunate to find out if that was true. In November of 2014, I won my election. I became a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. It was a high honor to be in that building. I fought for those that can't speak for themselves. 100% voting record with MCCL. I fought for our Second Amendment. 100% voting record with Minnesota GOCRA. I chief authored the largest business tax cut in the history of the state of Minnesota. Still stands now. I set a record number of bills signed by a governor. I was a legislative leader. I was a bridge builder. Our problems that we're facing, they're not intractable. There are solutions, but we keep running the same candidates over and over again. Repeat candidates in our state, and really every state, if you look at the numbers, don't work for statewide races. Our candidates just keep running the same thing over and over again. Does anyone in the room know how many statewide races we've lost in a row?
Nope.
All of them, a lot. The number's 25. 25 times in a row we've lost. Now, I'm a person of the law. I'm not a mathematician. But they tell me 0 for 25 is not very good. Does anyone in the room know how long it's been since we've had a Republican elected Attorney General?
Since the 50s.
Very close. Not quite the 50s.
70s?
The 60s, in between. 1966 was the last Republican elected Attorney General, Douglas Head. It's been 56 years. The damage to our state, to that office, 56 years of control. That has to stop. It will stop next year. Next year we're running a candidate that can appeal to all parts of the state. The greater Minnesota, the suburbs, and St. Paul and Minneapolis as well. How we're going to win the suburbs? The key battleground? I know how to do that. When I was in the legislature, I represented Maple Grove and Osseo. Osseo is just a little bit, 4% of the district, but they love when I say their name. So I represented Osseo too. The true suburban purple district. Quintessentially purple. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton faced off against candidate Trump, Hillary Clinton won my district decisively. It's a purple district. And now I beat her by quite a bit. But what that means is that people voted for me that don't agree with me on every issue. That's rare in politics, that we have someone to say, I don't agree with you on every issue, but I trust you that you're going to go to the Capitol and do what's right for us. That's how we win the suburbs. I have a proven track record for that. And in St. Paul and Minneapolis, we have 17 minority groups identified. And we have key leaders in all of them that's going to drive up the voter turnout in St. Paul and Minneapolis. That's how we're going to win. Also, we're using technology that's never been used before in a statewide race. I'm proud of my veteran campaign team. I'm proud of every single member of my campaign team. We have a member on our team that was part of the Youngkin victory from Virginia. Remember the Virginia results from last month? Governor and Attorney General won a purple state. When Scott talked before about how to expand that map, it's unfortunate, but the reality is there's more Democrats than Republicans in our state. We just can't everyone go vote their party and expect a different result. We're going to keep losing, just like we did the last 25 times in a row. We need someone that can pull the independents in, that can get the lean Democrats on their side. That's this candidate. I can do that. A few weeks ago we had a fundraiser, probably more than a few weeks ago now, a couple months ago, we had a fundraiser in a Democrat neighborhood in Minneapolis. Only Democrats came. Half of them said, Dennis, I haven't voted for a Republican. And I was thinking, ... Are they going to say like, you know, in a cycle, or in 2 cycles, or 8 years, 10 years? What are they going to say?
Ever.
Never. They've never voted for a Republican. I was the only person speaking. It said, come meet candidate for Attorney General Dennis Smith. He's a Republican. And they came. 2/3 of them wrote us checks. Now, I love raising money, and that's a part of this whole business, and I'm pretty good at it. But raising money from Republicans is fun. Raising money from Democrats, oh, that's really fun. And they said, you know, you're reasonable. You're giving us hope. You're giving us a chance that you're going to act with fairness and transparency, and you're going to hold the criminals accountable in our state. You know, I'd like to close with a good story representing the faith that people have in this campaign. We talked about Douglas Head in 1966 was the last elected Republican Attorney General. I found his widow, sweet Martha. We had coffee for an hour and a half. It was a long coffee. And while I'm good asking people for money, I did not ask her for money. I was very appreciative that she spent time with me. At the end of our meeting, she wrote my campaign a check without me asking. And she said, Dennis, you have given me hope. that this time the Republicans are running a candidate that can appeal to everyone in the state, and you'll succeed, my sweet Douglas. I have the temperament to go toe-to-toe with Keith Ellison. I do not crack under pressure. I'm Dennis Smith. I'm asking for your vote. I'm tough, I'm fair, and together we're going to get Keith Ellison out of Minnesota politics for good.
Yes.
Question.
How can we get Mark Elias out of our redistricting this year?
How can you get him out?
Yeah, he's here. He's going to try for a consent decree and mess with our redistricting.
Yeah, that's an issue that's concerning, and I don't know a lot about it, candidly. I heard a couple of things about it as we were preparing for this meeting. I'd like to learn more about it, but the redistricting, though, is something that the courts are going to settle. The legislature is not going to agree to it,
yeah,
so the courts are going to settle. So, unfortunately, the short term we can't really do anything to impact it, but long term we can elect a Republican legislature and a Republican governor and keep them in office. So the next time we draw the lines in 10 years, we control the chambers, and then we can define the maps.
How can we stop the consent decrees on elections?
Well, number one is that if I'm Attorney General and the Secretary of State changes the rules, tries to change the rules, and goes around the legislative process, I'll take that Secretary of State to court. And I will not allow that to happen. Our election laws are made by the legislature. And we need to get back to making laws the way they're supposed to be made. We saw what our governor did. He was making up laws on his own, and the Attorney General was letting him during COVID.
Yep.
And that's going to stop. Okay, any other questions?
There was one over there you were going to get back to.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the question about the judges with the bail. Yes, right, the judges with the bail, but how can we stop that?
Yes, right, because there's left and right out.
Yes, and you want more bail, I'm assuming, right?
More bail, more
Yes.
concrete.
I do too. I just wanted to make sure I understood your question.
Yes.
So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a list of all the judges that have allowed criminals out for low bail or no bail. And I'm going to call them. I'm going to say, you need to stop this. You're not following the rules. And if they don't stop it, and some won't, then I'm going to the large megaphone that the Attorney General has, and I'm calling them out. And I'm saying, everybody, this judge right here, Judge John Q. Judge in this county, is not doing their job. They're let this criminal out with this bail. This crime was committed. That's going to create pressure on them like you can't imagine. Now, I'm not advocating that mobs go to legislators or political people's or judges' homes. I don't think that's right. But it is certainly right and certainly allowed to call their office and to send them letters and say, you're not doing your job, we're holding you accountable for it. That accountability goes both ways, and we're going to do that. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to run someone against them. In my county, across the river, 43 judges were up for election in 2020. Guess how many had a challenger? Zero. So if we're not holding them accountable, then we're never running against them to keep them honest.
Yep.
And we know they don't see the world like we do. We're not too surprised when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we run someone against them. And how that starts is great groups like this. You guys find someone who wants to be a judge in your area. And you say, we're going to help you win. We're going to take up a collection for a little money. We're going to help you buy some lawn signs. We're going to find a place to put them. We're going to go door knock. We're going to go telephone call for you. You guys know who the conservatives are around here. And you help that. These judges are easy to beat because They have gotten soft. They haven't had any competition. Competition makes us better. And that is possible. We do that once or twice. These judges are going to know that we're not going to tolerate this.
Okay. Dennis, I have to say, are you one of those cute little doors with milk cartons, and you're way too young for that.
Well, I was the little guy in the trunk. Yes, yeah. My dad was a milkman for 45 years. It was pretty great. Just right in pretty close to this neighborhood. Just yeah. So here and then there.
I've read several times that lawyers are afraid to challenge judges in the election because they're worried about what happens if they don't win and end up facing it in court. Is there any truth to that?
I'm sure there is.
Yes, there
You know,
is.
maybe a little, but go ahead.
So what we need is lawyers with some backbone.
I was just going to say yes, but as Scott talked before, we're being tested right now, our society. Every single one of us. Our governor, the president, the attorney general, we're all being tested. And this is an opportunity for us to look deep in ourselves and say, what are we willing to do to help turn society around? Are we willing to take a little bit of heat or maybe take some unpleasant rulings or get some flack from somebody or have your neighbor mad at you? We need to come together and we need to stand up and fight. Because this is not the country that we grew up in. Things are absolutely deplorable what's going on right now. And I think those people are out there. I know one is standing right before you that has gone under incredible personal attack, professionally and personal. I'm willing to do it, sir, because I believe in this state and I want to make it better. There are others out there. You all took a step to be here tonight, and I know you guys come here often. This is a part of it. This is how we turn this state around. Keep showing up. Let's stay involved.
Yeah.
Now, the other issue we found is a judge may decide to lower the bail, but if we have prosecutors who refuse to issue a crime, prosecute, charge, like it's happening in St. Paul, Minneapolis, California and everything, here's the other issue. I mean, a judge has no option to do anything with bail when they don't get to even see the criminal because they're let go.
You're right. And what I will tell those county prosecutors, those county attorneys, if you want to make laws, quit your job and run for the legislature. I was there. It's a great place to work. But you don't get to decide what laws are followed. All the laws need to be followed. If you don't like it, go change it. But you need to prosecute the criminals. We know, anyone who has children knows that old adage, if a child does something wrong and you don't correct that behavior, they will do it again. We're seeing this with criminals. Someone asked me on the trail a few days ago about how many people that were involved in the riots in Minneapolis do I think were prosecuted?
None of them.
Zero.
Yeah,
There's about half a dozen.
It's not zero, but it's closer to a very small percentage. That's the wrong message. That's why we have 14-year-olds hijacking people as they wait at a stoplight in broad daylight in Minneapolis. And in all of our summers, the smash and grabs with the mobs. We're at a critical moment. When I talked about earlier about how we've lost trust in our institutions and our government, that is real. I feel it every day. I see it in people's eyes. Everywhere I go, I hear it in their voices. I know you guys do too. Let's stick together. Let's go out there. We can win this. We can win these races. We have to. Any other questions?
Dennis, how many people work in the Attorney General's office, and what number can be dismissed?
Yeah. So the numbers fluctuate, but about 200. And there is
200 attorneys?
Nope, a little bit less than that are attorneys. There's quite a bit of administrative support. But the Attorney General has the ability to create their own team and have, and they can hire and release attorneys as they see fit.
So how many can you dismiss if you win? How many are you stuck with?
Yeah, you could release all of them if you wanted to, and that would be a mistake. Someone in this race, one of my opponents, said last election that he would fire every single attorney. And Doug Wardlow should not have said that. That is wrong. He has since retracted that. I wonder if he still thinks that or not. But that's not the way. Our state is purple. We don't like it sometimes, but we have a purple state. Half of our Congress people are Republicans, half are Democrats. The House goes back and forth. Right now it's a 4.4 person majority for the Democrats. The Senate's controlled by one member. We used to have balance in the executive branch when we ran candidates that could appeal to all of Minnesota. We were going to fix that next year when I'm Attorney General. But my question when I'm Attorney General isn't going to be to someone, what's your party affiliation? You're fired if you say the wrong word. It's going to be two things. Are you the best attorney you can be? Are you the best attorney to represent Minnesota? And will you follow the direction of me, of the Attorney General? Because I don't really care what their politics are. I care that they're a great attorney and that they will do what I ask them to do. The ones that don't, they're going to find new employment. But it's okay to have Democrats in the Attorney General's office. There's a lot of institutional knowledge. There's a lot of great attorneys there. And we used to have...
Do we need all 200?
I'm sorry?
Do we need all 200?
Well, no, I'm a small government person. Yeah. Some in this race, one of my opponents, Doug Wardlow, he wants to expand the office and grow government, which is weird because conservatives, we want to shrink government, but no, I don't think we need all 200. But 25 years ago, we used to have national prestige in the Attorney General's office. We were admired by other states in the country. It doesn't happen anymore. We're not admired. There isn't prestige. I want to rebuild that prestige in that office and have that national admiration. So that's my view as well when I think about the staffing in the office.
What are we going to do about making our elections fair? I mean, it's so deplorable what's happening, and it's so sad that you can't count that your vote is going to be your vote.
Right.
And that people who shouldn't be voting are voting, and I mean, it's all so messed up.
When we don't, that's a great question, thank you. When we don't feel safe on the streets, when we're worried about being shot or being mugged as we walk out to our car, and our election, our vote in the election, we're not sure if it matters, the experiment in our country is over. We have failed. It is critically important. And let everyone make there no confusion. When I'm Attorney General, if you break the election laws, you're going to jail, period. How we get there? There's a few things. The options aren't great. We need more election judges. You guys probably have heard the stat. We had a 7-to-1 disadvantage against the Democrats. They had 20,000 election judges on election day. We had 3,000. That's not good. We need more people to volunteer. And we need volunteers in the Twin Cities. People that want to volunteer, like up in greater Minnesota, they need to drive down here and come to your neighborhood and my neighborhood. I used to be one, and they would send me to St. Cloud because I lived in Maple Grove. It's relatively close. And it's needed. It is that can make a difference. But also, we need to hold the Democrats accountable and not let them change the election rules right before the election, like happened last time.
How do we do that?
Well, when you're not in power, it's hard. And part of that answer is that elections have consequences. We let Steve Simon win in 2018, and we saw a consequence of that. That he did that, and then we didn't have a Republican Attorney General there to hold that Secretary of State accountable. So we need to be in positions of influence. But the other thing we can do, and this is the easiest thing of everything I mentioned, there's about a 25% reduction in vote from the presidential year to the non-presidential year. So this in 2022 is a non-presidential year. If we go out and vote like it's a presidential year, we will win.
Yeah.
Because regardless how much they cheat, our numbers will surpass that.
Yeah.
So that means that everybody on your block in your neighborhood, and everyone's block, we go grab our neighbors and say, let's go vote. If someone needs a ride, You pick them up if they're not feeling well and you drive them there. That's what the Democrats do. They just simply outwork us. And if we apply the same effort, the tide is there between Virginia and how we feel in our state. We will win a lot of seats. I know we'll win the Attorney General's office. And then we can start to make changes for the next election and the next generation.
Dennis, are you aware of any election crimes in Minnesota that has resulted in jail time for anyone?
I'm not, and I haven't studied the issue. I've heard anecdotal about crimes happening, and that evidence wasn't sufficient to go forward, or
nobody goes to jail.
Yep, right, and that goes to the accountability piece that we're talking about. That needs to change exactly. And sometimes the investigations don't even happen. I mean, there are some Minnesotans that claim. I mean, Doug Wardlow works for Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell says he has all this evidence that all these crimes were committed. And I say to them, share it. Show us that evidence. Let's go to court. And let's go to court and try to win these cases, because just saying you have evidence that crimes committed doesn't really help us out.
And meanwhile on Facebook, they're interviewing people that are saying, oh, I'm going out and collecting ballots. I mean,
Right.
they're showing the corruption right on Facebook in the Somali communities. And Somalis are standing up and saying, this isn't why we came to Minnesota. We came to Minnesota because we wanted to have a fair government.
Right.
So I mean, it's just so crazy.
So if there aren't any other questions, if you have any other, I'll be around for a little while afterwards, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate your time and listening and thinking about this campaign. This is an important race, and I firmly believe I'm the only candidate that can beat Keith Ellison. And if you like what you heard tonight, and you want to be part of making history and really making a change in this state, get involved in my campaign. We've got all these fun things. We have social media. We're redefining how social media is being used and how technology is being used. If you want to learn more about that, call me and I will tell you about it and get involved. Follow us on social media. Ask for a t-shirt. We have the best t-shirts in politics. Mary's wearing it right now.
Put your size down here next to your name and I'll deliver it.
Yes, and Mary will deliver it. And then take a picture of yourself with the shirt on, doing something fun. We've got all sorts of fun photos. We put them out on social media. We are actually having fun with this campaign. Campaigns are a lot of hard work, and the issues are serious. But it doesn't mean you can't have a little fun along the way. And we're having fun. So join our campaign if you want to have some fun with us. And thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it.
Picture. All right.
It's Adam, right?
Adam Davis.
What's a BPOU?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm talking to my coat. This came out of there. I came back.
All right. Well, thank you. I am thrilled about the candidates that we had tonight here. I hope you are too. In the coming months here, I plan on having additional candidates come each month. I will be announcing them as we confirm them. And so that's our governor candidates, other ones for Attorney General, Secretary of State, and I think we're still looking for an auditor. So, just saying. But seriously, what is the notes on here? Oh, okay.
The t-shirts look just like this now.
We should all thank Adam for putting on these great BPOU meetings too.
Good job.
I have to really thank all these candidates that have
There you go. Sorry it's such a small amount, but that's just got my Social Security check. Uh-oh. I'm coming up.
good to see you. So
why'd you come up here?
Did you make it to the
The easiest way to help out your
Oh, that's
PCR
right, I told
is
you.
to give us some funding.
But, well, see you around some more.
That we like, and we can, the PCR money is fabulous this year, because you get your money back in about 5 weeks. So just loading it up for 5 weeks, so I'm gonna give $100 tonight.
$50 per person or $100 per couple. End of the year coming up here, so if you haven't done it yet for the end of the calendar year, this is a great time to be doing that. And of course, once January starts, you can do it all over again.
Dale?
And oftentimes people forget the off year to take advantage of that. Our BPOU could certainly use that. We have some great candidates, and we would be happy to take some donations as well, certainly. So, if you are interested, you want to know more information about that, please see me afterwards. Tim Kirk is our treasurer. He'd be happy to get you that PCR form and your receipts and get that taken care of. Let's see, we have our next BPOU meeting would be on January 20th. That's the third Thursday of each month. So, make sure that you set your calendars for that. In addition, their precinct caucuses are coming up February 1st, Tuesday, February 1st. That's a big deal. That's the start of this whole process of a 2-year cycle. And we really need you guys to help out and be part of that. I've always said that politics is made up of those that show up. And if you show up, we'll put you to work. So there's always something extra. There's always one more thing that we could have done for that campaign. And so when I first started, I would always lament more those details that we didn't get to. But I find out at the end of the day, no matter how many details we get to, there's always one more thing that we could have done, maybe even better with that. So we want to make as many of those goals as possible to get through that. Our first step here is precinct caucus. Anyone who would love to help us out in that process, I really want to have you part of that. We are putting that together as we speak.
Do you have a location?
Our biggest need right now is the precinct caucus conveners. And so what we need for that is, like how you're at tables right now, you have each table will have a particular precinct of neighbors that belong in a particular area based upon your voting. And we will be there to elect your delegates, your alternates, your precinct chairs, of course, and what do I say?
Well, I had for caucuses, February 1st, I put in a reservation for Valley View Elementary, but they just sent me a note today saying the high school is available. So I've never been in that elementary school, but I don't know how people feel. I think the high school might work better.
Chairs are little.
You won't get the little kid chairs.
High schools are a lot better. Those little kid, some of us big people don't like little kid chairs.
There before.
We've had it at the high school, but we were told at the time it wasn't available. Now it is.
Awesome.
Yeah, but
Parking is
the other guys booked like all the high schools. I don't know if they're gonna, but yeah, it opened up. So if anybody, unless anybody sees something.
Which high school? Columbia Heights?
Columbia Heights Senior High School.
49. Are the Democrats across the street? Because that was
No, because the elementary schools were all open. I think they booked Fridley High School and they booked the middle school.
Because they all came over to our caucus the last time.
Really? Well, they're welcome.
No, screw around with this.
They did that in SD40 too. We had a joint in the same building, and at the very end, they closed out their caucuses and they came into ours right afterwards.
Well, sometimes they're doing it by precinct, so they're reserving 20 different locations in a row, but just one room. But
Are we doing it all in one room? Or are you going to have 32 rooms?
well, I think that's where if they will have advice We could do, how many precincts do we have? 32? We could go for 32 rooms, or we could get, I've never been in the lunch, but we could get the lunchroom and do tables. We've done that some years.
Or the gym.
You're gonna want to make sure that you divide up all of your delegates and all of your everything has to be divided by precinct.
Yep.
Because of redistricting coming up, and because you're not going to know how that's going to divide out until like we're talking.
Yep. No, we've
April,
done that.
maybe.
Some years just done, precinct in a classroom, done 30 classrooms, or done tables in the 32 collections of
Cafeteria.
tables in the lunchroom, or gym, however they. I don't know.
I have to leave because I don't dare bring my car into Columbia Heights. So I'm getting picked up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, but I have a brand new car. I'm not bringing it here.
I feel that way about Minneapolis, so.
Just get in touch with me. I've done caucus before, and I'm willing to help. I can get you some good leaders.
Okay. We will talk.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
We're all done, right? We're all done, right?
Yeah.